welcome back to Houston Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Shannon Register, and every week we bring you news and information you can use on your next real estate transaction. We're excited to be spending Sunday morning with you and have lots to talk about today. We're going to give you an economic forecast, really from a national perspective. We've got the National Association of Realtors weighing in, so lots of great information coming your way. If you miss any of today's show, though, you can catch us online at HoustonRealEstateRadio.com. We put all the videos over there for you so that you can catch it later if you aren't able to catch us live on the radio. So this segment, I am interviewing Danielle Hale. She's the Managing Director of Housing Research at the National Association of Realtors. She works with a team of to produce NAR's monthly existing home sales, pending home sales, and housing affordability index, the quarterly metro area median prices and qualifying income, and annual metro area affordability index. She sounds incredibly busy working a lot of statistical information. She also studies tax issues, the wealth impact of home ownership, and different measures of home prices. And she's a graduate of Florida State University, so we are not going to hold that against her. Welcome to the show, Danielle.
Thanks, Shannon. It's good to be here.
So, you really have a job that sounds like you're just in an office all the time, but when I talk to you, you're so personable. So do you do a lot of interviews, or are you doing a lot of number crunching?
I have a good team that does a lot of the number crunching, and so that gives me some time to focus on telling people about the numbers and what they mean.
Good. All right. So I think, really what our listeners are going to want to know first and foremost is, where are we going with this economy? Is it going to get better and better, or do we need to be prepared for something worse to come?
I think our forecast right now calls for steady as we go ahead. I mean, it's not as robust as we saw in the years leading during the housing boom. But for the most part, we're expecting growth to continue on at about just below a 2% pace, which has sort of become the new normal for the economy. We used to think closer to 3% was normal, but it looks like 2% in this environment is about what we can expect. So
is that 2% year over year?
Yeah, that's 2% year over year. And we're talking about real GDP here. So that means it's already been adjusted for inflation.
Okay.
So the actual nominal GDP, the amount of dollars that people are actually exchanging, will move up a little bit higher than that.
So just so people at home know, we're not talking about Houston market. We're not even talking about Texas market. We're talking about the national housing market and kind of where we're going from a national perspective. So as a nation, what's kind of our average home price? I mean, for people across the nation, we hear about high prices in certain areas, and then other places are more economical to live in. But what's the overall national average, if you will, for home pricing?
Sure. So I'm going to actually give you the median instead of the average.
Okay.
Because when we talk about housing, there's a certain threshold below which you're not going to find housing, but then for really massive, you can find multi-million-dollar properties that go all the way up. So that's what we would call an uneven distribution. And so the median gives a better indicator of, what's normal, if you will, than the average, which tends to be skewed a little bit higher, those massive properties. So when we look at the median home price for existing homes, because we separate data by existing homes, which are homes that are not newly constructed, and new homes. So in 2015, the median home price was $220,800.
Okay.
And I'm giving you an annual price as opposed to a monthly price, because there's a little bit of variation from month to month in the home prices. So about $220,000 is what we think of as a typical home price.
And that's good for buyers and sellers who are going to move across country to know, especially if they're looking at job offers in different areas of the country, to know kind of what that overall average is. Because with all the issues, I know there are a lot of issues going on in Houston with oil prices being so low. We see a lot of people moving now across the country. A lot of people were moving here for a long time, and now there's a few people moving away. So I think that's very important. Do you think that these housing prices are just going to continue to go up year over year?
Yeah, that's our expectation. Demand is pretty strong. There has been some softening in the overall U.S. economy as a result of the lower oil prices. It used to be that economists thought lower oil prices were a great thing, and they were generally for most of the U.S., but the oil industry has become more important, particularly in areas like Houston. And so, it's it's less of an unambiguously good thing now. It's a little bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
It's bad for some areas, but good for people who are paying lower prices at the pump.
Right.
So that sort of has this effect across the country, and creates a little bit of weakness. But on the whole, we've still seen the economy is growing, and that's, creating jobs, giving people income.
Right.
And that means that demand is really strong throughout the country.
And for 2017, do you expect it to continue to grow?
Yeah, we do. So our forecast actually calls for, we saw home sales of about 5.3 million in 2015, and we're expecting it to go up to 5.4 million in 2016, okay, and somewhere between 5.5 and 5.6 million in 2017. So steady, not huge jumps, but steady growth moving forward.
So there's not a big concern right now about all the college grads who kind of go back and live at home and they're not going out and buying properties. Eventually, they're going to be home buyers, right? That's kind of what it sounds like. They're eventually going to, even though they might not be doing it immediately like they used to, they're going to eventually do it. So the housing market's going to continue to grow.
Yeah, that's the expectation. We do, it's called the home survey, the Homeownership market experience survey. And it found that, especially among younger potential buyers or younger consumers, 91% of them thought owning a home was part of their American dream. So the desire to own is still very strong.
Okay.
For most young people, when you come out, incomes are lower, and it's sometimes hard to imagine what your life might look like 5 to 10 years down the road. So a lot of our millennial generation is quite young.
Yeah.
They're very recently out of college. As they grow up, I think that some of those things that seem out of reach right now might become more of a reality for them.
And your studies include condos as well. Doesn't have to be a freestanding structure. It includes condos, townhouses, any kind of residential property, right?
That's right, exactly. Yes.
Okay. Talk to me a little bit about the inventory that's available, because I know we've had inventory shortages, and then we go to, a few years ago we had too many resales on the market. Where are we now inventory wise?
So inventory wise, we're at roughly between a 4 and 5 month supply. And that's on the lower side of what we would consider to be a normal and balanced market. Typically, we want to see closer to that 6 month supply. And the month supply figure is what I quoted as opposed to the raw inventory level, because I think that that's a more important indicator of the overall health of the economy and the housing market in particular. Because you're looking at supply relative to the demand that's on the market.
Right. How do you think interest rates are going to affect home ownership in the future? Do you think they've got to go up?
Yeah, that's a great question. So mortgage rates have been incredibly low for an incredibly long period of time. We've been expecting them to move up. I think people thought that the economy would recover faster than it did. It's been a little bit slow to do that. So the Fed's been a little bit slow to kick mortgage rates up. Your realtors will probably remember in 2013, mid-2013, we did see mortgage rates rise almost a whole percentage point in a very short period of time. Since that time, they've actually drifted down a bit, so that's good news for people in the market now. I do think the direction going forward will be up, and so that will make it a little bit more difficult for people to finance a home, and we do find that 90% of people are financing their home. They're not paying cash with it. So it is going to be a little bit of a challenge for the market going forward. That's why we don't expect big leaps and bounds in home sales growth, but sort of steady growth moving forward.
A lot of people are opting for new construction because of the green features in the homes, and that even though they're going to pay more for new construction, they know that over the life of the loan, they're not going to pay more because they would have paid so much in utilities with an older home. How is that trending in your numbers? Are you seeing any of that happening number-wise as far as the home sales?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've actually seen new home sales fall below existing home sales in the sort of percentage of recovery, if you will. So there's a lot more existing inventory available. And so what that's doing is actually driving up the price for new home sales even more. We've seen a pretty substantial bounce back in new home sales when you talk about year over year percentage growth. I mean, it's in 2015, new family sales were up almost 15%, whereas existing sales were up 6.3%. but it had shrunk to such a small portion of the market that I think there's still plenty of room for the new home sales market to grow. And that's a good thing for the existing market because if you have current existing owners who are trading up into new homes, that really enables their existing inventory to go back onto the market. And so it creates fresh supply for first-time buyers who are trying to get into the market and might not want to go straight to a new home.
And what are you seeing with regards to areas of the country that are moving at a faster pace than others? Where are the most desirable areas for housing in the country?
That's a great question. We've seen prices move up pretty substantially in the West, particularly in California, though that slowed a bit in the most recent report. And we really saw Florida becoming a hot spot. Since you're in Texas, I'll say that Texas did very well in the earlier part of the recovery, but as a result of the drop in oil prices has not done as well recently. But it still is decent, just not as good as it was a couple of years ago.
So California and Florida is where you see the majority of people moving to right now. Is that right? Where you see the most resales?
That's where home prices are doing very well, which is an indication of that's probably also people coming in and not having enough construction relative to the number of people coming in.
Okay. All right. So the best part of the country to sell right now, what's the best sellers market?
Oh, that's a great question.
Because Florida used to be really bad for sales. I mean, Florida was, you didn't want to have a property in Florida that you needed to sell there or Vegas. But it sounds like they're doing better.
Yeah, it's true. The month supply of inventory is quite low there. So Florida probably is a great place to be a seller. California as well. Their inventory has been quite low. Other areas in the West, like Denver and Seattle, also have very low inventories relative to demand. So I guess if I could thematically categorize a city, it seems to be, tech areas are where we're seeing the tightest inventories. And those are areas that we've seen a lot of growth in recently. So.
Okay. All right. Great information. Danielle, we appreciate you updating us on the national housing market. We talk so much on the show about what's going on here locally in Houston and in Texas. So it's great to get a national perspective on resales and what's going on. So we appreciate you Skyping in today from Washington, D.C.
Happy to be here with you. Thanks, Shannon.
All right. Thanks. We'll be right back with another segment of Houston Real Estate Radio right after word from our sponsors.